Welcome to the Vanilla Podcast. We're wanting to address something different. We've all got the same mic now.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I know. It's no longer the odd one out in the middle with a big fat old mic.
Yeah. And Levi's voice would often be slightly louder or lower because we'd change it.
Yeah.
But now we're all the same. We're all great quality voices right here.
Yeah, and we've mixed up where we're doing the podcast today. We thought we would do it on the couch, get all cozy, and yeah.
See how it goes, eh? Just change it up, make it a bit more relaxed vibes, and on the couch.
I don't know if it looks relaxed on the camera, but you guys tell us. What do you think?
Yeah,
I don't-
just comment if you like it or you don't.
Some comfy vibes, but I'm comfy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty comfy. Well, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about conversations and if just each one of our conversation styles and how we do things, how we, keep conversations interesting.
Yeah.
It's always a topic that fascinates myself because we do a lot of talking within conversations. It's the way we connect with other people. It's the way we learn. We talk by learning, we talk many words during the day. We wake up, have a conversation with people. It's how we communicate, and I reckon there's a lot of power in the tongue as well. And also, if you can master the act of conversation, that's a real skill you can have in life that can get you far places.
Totally.
Yeah. Did you guys ever read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People? It's got to be like the all-time
I haven't.
self-help book.
Neither have I, but I've heard some good things about it. Have you?
Yeah, well, it's exactly like just brings up that. It's just the mastery. I think it is kind of being a good person. And I guess the only way to communicate, you communicate to others if you're a good person in a sense. And it kind of just speaks, some tactics that I might bring up.
Do you reckon you can do you reckon that teach you how to have conversations?
Yeah, it just teaches you things. It would have been great if I did a little bit of research before. Because like all heaps of books I read it and I just forget it, to be honest. And I remember one thing. The only thing I really remembered from it was active listening.
But,
Okay.
but it's a key thing that you remember.
Yeah. Usually just like a handful of things.
Good
But,
stuff. Yeah.
it counts. Active listening. That's one
Active
thing.
listening.
Within conversations?
Yeah, so with convos and stuff, I feel like it's just, it's pretty important there's one thing using your mouth, but also I feel like conversations isn't just communicating, it's also listening. Debatably the most important thing.
I will second it. We were at church 2 nights ago, 6 p.m, and I was talking to Tremaine and Alicia actually, and I found it really hard to actively listen because right behind you guys was like just all of the youth and stuff just standing on the seats, and it was so hard to not look at them and kind of like you just like don't know who's around, so you want to see who's there. It's so hard to just like focus in and just really listening to what you guys are saying. Not that it wasn't great stuff, but
Bro, and people notice too. I'm not saying I
People
notice this
notice.
time, but like I think one of the worst insults when you're talking to someone is when you're speaking to them and they're looking over you. Like, so they're like
Eyeing
looking
up the
for
next conversation.
Eyeing up for the next conversation
Yeah.
and like aren't being fully present with you in the current one. I've had it a few times when someone's keen on a specific person and you can just see that they just want to speak to that person and don't really want to speak to you, which can be a bit hurtful.
just filling time a little bit. One
You
would
could say that. You could.
It does hurt. Levi, what do you reckon? Give us a zinger. What's a good conversation? Like, what's a great key to have? A good conversation.
When having a good conversation, what's some good things to have? Good question, Ezra. I think it's important, like you said, to have a topic and have a topic you can both relate to. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
when you're having a conversation with someone, especially when you meet someone for the first time or you're in conversation with someone, being in a church environment, you're in a foyer, you're talking to different people, you can kind of have that dry conversation. It's kind of going like 50-50. But then as soon as you have that click, I have that click and you're like, man, like, oh, you play basketball and I play basketball. You know what I mean? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, and you
Yeah.
like bond over something. So I think if you can learn how to end the conversation, get to something that you're both super excited about and
Common
passionate
ground.
about,
Common ground. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that starts with a bit of questions as well.
Yeah. It's the truest thing. We
Yeah.
had a CG the other night, and there was a dude I was talking to, and then he suddenly we've clicked. His name's Callan actually. We clicked that he works with Tremaine's brother-in-law, And suddenly it was just like, oh, bro, like
Crazy,
now,
yeah.
now I know you.
It's like
you
we're
know,
best friends like that.
like
Yeah.
everything
It's like,
changes when you suddenly like it's common ground. It's
Yeah.
literally that. Or
Yeah.
you find someone love basketball. If someone loves basketball, it's oh okay, sweet. Like now we can be good friends because
Yes.
you know like we have common ground.
Yeah, yeah. And do you reckon people that are really good at conversations have a lot of interest or know a lot of topics? Like like Granddad, for example, he has a lot of
Yeah, well,
knowledge.
Granddad would always tell me that he would research things just to be a good conversationalist. Like you're a bit like that as well.
Wow.
Like you'd keep up to date with different sport and things. I'm guilty. I don't know much about basketball, so and all that. But I noticed, you're pretty good when it comes to NBA chat.
All right, I know a few things from just over the years, but yeah, like going back to our granddad, me and Tremaine, our cousins, and our granddad used to always say that he used to read the entire newspaper and even topics that he wasn't interested in, and read over, the music and the current events and the, the celebrities and the food and the sports that's coming, and he would read over everything. Specifically, so that he could have conversations with anyone, and he valued it being a salesman as well.
Whoa.
That he could walk in and someone could walk in and he could relate to something because he had a great understanding of current events, which the news does, which he found the news does.
Yeah.
Dang,
Yeah.
that's
Respect that.
convicting. I don't know about you guys. I feel like I'm the furthest from that. Like I don't know current events and stuff. And I try to if I can't relate to something with someone, if they're a dancer and I can't really relate to dancing, I feel like I'll try to ask good questions though, and I'll try to be curious about it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Are you guys good with that? Like some people kind of sometimes switch off when it's something they don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I can kind of fake it. For some reason, I feel like I'm good at relating to. I feel like I know a basic level about a lot of things, but I feel like I could definitely like maybe read the news. That could be a good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
same.
And do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
These days, the news, most people don't, even myself, I wouldn't do it that often, other than my family still quite often does put the 6 o'clock news on TV. But yeah. But I want to touch on you two boys real quick, because you guys started a window cleaning business. And I remember when you guys first started, one of the things you did, and I think you still do it sometimes every now and then, is did a bit of door knocking. So you went around and knocked on doors to ask for them for a sale. And I'd be interested to see how if maybe a fail that didn't go so well, or maybe one that did go well, and maybe what are some strategies you learned around the process of doing a bit of door knocking, how to have conversations with strangers, and also sell something to them as well. So you kind of have to make yourself appealing as well.
Yeah.
I have a reasonably early fail. I think it was our first day of door knocking. We just like walked around like 2.5 hours going door knocking. We went to this older guy's house, and we just go up and say, "Hey, we do window cleaning," and we heard that you want to start with a question. How often do you get your windows cleaned? And he's like, "Oh, I get them done regularly. Like I'm fine, thanks." And he was trying to shut it down really quick. And I was like, "Oh, how often?" And he's like, "Oh, I get them done twice a year." He's like, "Oh, well, we actually know that you should be doing them every 2 months." And he was just like this little rat bag, like trying to get it. And he was like, "Oh, is that right? Is that right?" He kind of just lets us walk off. but-
Yeah. I feel like that happened quite a lot. Like people just wanted us to get off their property, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is when we stuck with it, we noticed we did get better. And it's really hard to define what we got better at. I think confidence was quite a big part of it. You don't want to be timid. I think when we first started, I remember going down the street, and somehow it's like,
so scared. So scared.
it's like anxiety, like 10. And somehow we made eye contact with someone in the house. I cringe. I don't even know what to be saying this.
Bad.
And then they you can just see that we're some like cheesy ass salesmen. Like, they gave us that look.
We looked
and
at
then
them. we started walking away, right?
Yeah, we started walking away, but then we stopped and we turned back. It was just awkward as, man. And we're like half like in their porch, like, should we go in? And
We were like lingering
on
for
the
5
door.
minutes until eventually they just walked out their back door into their backyard, so that
Yeah.
we couldn't knock on their door.
Yeah, they kind of like removed themselves. I might have like even closed the blinds or something too. It was bad. But yeah, that was our first start, and after that, I really didn't want to do it.
But
Wait, so you just walked out and just did? acknowledge
We
that.
didn't even knock. We didn't even knock. We were
It
just like awkwardly lingering for 5 minutes. So fair enough that he walked out the
Yeah.
back door.
Yeah.
But moral of the story is we put in reps.
Yeah. And it's also normal when you first start out anything new to feel like a bit of a loser. And we felt like losers then. And the weird thing is, by the end of the day, we didn't feel like losers. We actually put ourselves out there. We knocked on a few doors. We gave a few quotes. And before we knew it, we got better and our confidence grew. And yeah, we just, over time, we learned what worked and what didn't.
What were some of the things that you learned? I remember you saying that asking a question to start us off is a great way to start off the conversation. What are some things? And I think especially while doing a sales pitch as well, like it's quite interesting for a conversation point of view.
I think just not being too intense, like just keep it light and fluffy, keep it easy, just keep things, like don't put the pressure cooker out on the situation.
Yeah.
You know? People can sense it off you, like
Yeah.
people can, tell if you're being a bit desperate, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really hard to define it. But
I think when we knock on a door, much like any conversation you have with a new person, everyone wants to, okay, how can I trust this person? I don't trust them right now. And so you need to make a way to help them to trust you. And I remember Tremaine, it was incredible. Greatest example of it. We went up to a door and the dude's just out in his garage and he's like fixing things up. And Tremaine's just like, hey, like we do window cleaning, wondering if you'd be interested. The guy's like, oh, like appreciate it, but no, I'm all right, thanks. And I was like, okay, normally that's when we just walk away. But Tremaine was like, oh, okay, no worries. Like, how long you been in the area? Sparks a bit of a combo.
Oh,
2 minutes
David.
later, the dude's like, oh yeah, you know what? I could get my windows clean. Come around and give me a quote. And just from that, like he built common ground. He got over now he trusts us. So now he lets us into his house to give him a quote.
yeah. I think that's the thing. He just realized that I was a normal human being and I wasn't, I opened up the conversation, and that's, a good principle for conversations in general. If you can just be light and simple, ask open-ended questions, people start being more comfortable. They chuck down their guards that they have up. And I remember I also do work for my dad, and man, it was like a similar vibe for that as well. So this is like loans and things like that. So I had to call people up and kind of just, try and maybe get them to accept their offer for the loans and stuff. And it's kind of this, like a similar thing. Like you just need to be a bit more light. My dad always said, don't be a robot. Don't be scared, You kind of have to be, you actually have to have a little bit of guts. You actually have to, you can't be so scared of them saying no and rejecting you. Even though it's like inside, you're so nervous, maybe for the first few, you actually have to back yourself, and you have to say, just be open and just be like, come and get your windows cleaned, or just don't, and it's fine. And I feel like me and Ezra noticed this. Even when they said no, the conversation doesn't have to be awkward. Even if it doesn't go your way, it doesn't have to be awkward. I feel like it's only awkward when you put your pride on the line,
Yeah, totally. I feel like you would know more than any of us, Levi. Like, we all spend a lot of time in a church foyer. You specifically would probably spend a bit more time than us in a church foyer because you work for church. What's a good way to, if there's a new person you would approach? I haven't done that in a while, to be honest, in the church foyer. But if you're approaching a new person, what do you reckon a good way to start up a convo is?
The good thing about church, you can ask classic questions like, oh, how long have you been alive for? Or how long, like those kind of classic questions. One thing that I think can work really well is giving someone a compliment. You know what I mean? Like, or like you find like they're wearing a nice jumper or some nice shoes, or you find like, oh, like something about them, and you go like, oh, like, bro, isn't that new shoes you got there? You know what I mean? Or like you like start off something like about them, or like, oh, like, bro, like, oh, how was that? Kind of thing. Yeah. I think that can work quite well because all of a sudden they start talking about themselves, and they're like, oh, bro, you noticed something about me. Yeah. You noticed something about like what I was wearing and stuff like that, and that can always be a great little hook to get in, have a conversation with someone, and then include them into the conversation, and then get chatting to them and find out more about them as well. So yeah.
I think people love talking about themselves, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're complimenting them and like, tell me about your shoes, or like you end up saying, I don't know if he's bulk, or like, you find out that he's got golf. Oh, tell me about like golf.
Yes.
Yeah, because people yarn all day about like their hobbies and stuff like that.
If you can find out what they're passionate about, it changes the game. You know what I mean? If you find out something that they like to talk about and can just talk to hours about, all of a sudden you like got them talking and they're enjoying the conversation. You're making them feel excited about the topic.
Yeah.
You're making them feel like, oh man, they're interested in that as well. You know what I mean? And all of a
Yeah,
sudden it just like
yeah.
lights up the conversation.
Yeah.
And it just makes a huge difference.
Totally.
Yeah.
I found that with my young people that I lead, actually. Just a bunch of like, whether it's Epic Sundays or Epic Thursdays. Yeah, often if the kids don't have, if it's not something they care about, it's really hard to make conversation. But if it's something they're interested in,
Yeah.
like they're the best conversationalists. And
Yes.
they're so hype and
Yeah.
intrigued in it and eager. And I think that's just natural for a human being. If you're interested in it, you're going to talk more about it.
Yeah. Well, also, I reckon, another thing that I learned about conversations as well, and I work in kids ministry, and I talk to kids all the time. I was actually mentioning this today to one of my mates. But sometimes because I talk so much to kids, I can like forget I talk to adults a little bit sometimes. Like when you work in George Floyd, which is like a
okay.
little bit of a separate topic. But when I'm speaking to kids, one of my favorite things to do is when I speak to kids, obviously I'm pretty tall. Like I'm a 6'3" guy, and
Yeah.
you see like a little 5-year-old come past, and if I stand up to them and I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" Like they got to like be scared or like not going to engage
Yeah.
properly. But what I always do is you get down low and you go, "Hey," like, and you get like down your knee or something. You go, "Hey, how are you doing? How's your day?" Or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and you get a little high five and stuff as well, and engaging to them and like having your body and like towards them as well, you know what I mean? Like not like turning away and stuff like that. And I actually learned that also from being in like church for and having conversations.
Yeah.
It's super important to, when you're talking to someone, to have your even like shoulders like facing the person
Whoa,
as well.
okay. Yeah.
Because if you're like, if I'm having, it's a bit awkward now currently because I've got
Yeah,
both
yeah,
of you either
yeah.
side. But if I'm having a conversation with Ezra and my body's like facing over to Tremaine, like Ezra's gonna be, like Levi's not very interested in this conversation. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like he's
I've
got other
actually
things.
also heard it's feet as well. Like even
Feet
having your
position.
even
Okay.
having your foot slightly open shows that you're kind of already like planning your escape route. But by
Yes.
closing it, you're like you're in this.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I think that is a mental
Yeah.
thing. I think it is. Have you guys not sat with people though, like in this kind of position, and for example, Levi would just fully be like facing Tremaine, and then you're just like one of these ones where you're like looking around trying to jump in the conversation. Like it's the worst. It's the
Yeah,
worst.
yeah,
Have
yeah.
you guys
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
that? Like
I don't really fully jump onto what you're talking about there. But
okay.
like,
Oh well.
yeah, yeah.
3 people on a couch. Levi is just kind of facing you, and you guys having more of a conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of trying to jump in,
Like,
but
hi
I'm
there.
kind of like this, you know.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
the worst.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
I'm trying to gain your guys' approval.
Okay.
But-
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
body
that's-
posture is important.
It's interesting. Yeah. And I think it's that thing of half sending it. You're like, you're half in the conversation. Maybe just full send it, you
Yeah.
know, and just, yeah, I guess I could be like, do you peek over again? We'll try it again. I'd be like, hey, stop peeking over. You're not part of this conversation. No one likes you. I don't value anything you say. Is that what you're
yeah, that's
Is
what
that
I
what you're
feel,
scared
that's what I
of?
feel like
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah.
I guess it's, yeah.
Yeah, the best people I know is, they'll if you're in a conversation, wherever it is, they're locked in with you. Even if it's heaps of people around, they're locked in with
Yeah.
you, and they're asking questions about you or something, and they're just like so focused and like,
2
wow,
words.
tell me about basketball.
Yeah.
And
Stan Brown.
Stan-
We're going to say Stan Brown's pretty good
I've
at that.
I've said his name like 5 times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
I didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I got a question for you too. All right, this is just thoughts as well. If someone's a good conversationalist, how much percentage do you think that person speaks compared to listen? So if you're like out of 100,
Probably say 48.
uh,
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just being annoying.
but like how much, like what percentage of that within that conversation, if you would classify them as a good conversationalist, how much of that conversation would they be talking, and how much conversation of that would they be listening?
Is these one of these questions where you've done a bit of pre-research?
No, I
and
have
you know?
not.
Okay,
No,
you don't.
I
Okay.
I'm just interested to see what like we come up with as in a census.
Yeah, I would probably say maybe like 65% listening, 35% talking.
Really? But then, so let's say me and Levi are both great at conversation. How can that be then?
Yeah,
Because there's just more listening than talking.
That's what I like.
yeah.
That's kind of funny. Like I feel like I've had a few instances where like, you chuck a lot of questions at each other like the whole time, and then you wonder like, are we both just trying to get each other to talk here? It's like, is this a good conversation or no?
You're both trying to like flick the conversation onto the other person. And it's just like
We haven't
rebounds?
had this before. 265 equals 130%.
I feel like I can be quite a questions guy sometimes. and Lulu's also a questions girl. And I feel like the first time I met her, I feel like it was a bit like,
Yeah.
oh, and then questions. And, yeah.
So Ezra, can I tell you? Tell me your deepest secret.
Yeah. It's like,
No, Lulu, you tell me.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, so I think it should be 50-50. But you feel it out. If they've got something really interesting to speak about, then you're listening more. You're listening more.
Yeah.
I was gonna say 70% listening, 30% talking. That was just what my
Wow.
I think if you
All the
I think if you can do more listening, you have the dominance and the you are the greater. I don't know. Like you there was a lot of
Dominance.
Come on, bro. Like,
I can't remember. Anyway, but because you have a skill of conversations, like you make them talk more.
Okay.
Yeah, it means you're good at asking questions.
oh, I get what you're trying
Yeah.
to say. You're just trying to say that you're probably doing the right thing.
Well,
in the
there's no right
conversation,
and
I
wrong
guess,
thing,
I
but it's
don't
more
know,
just like
yeah.
you must be good at asking questions, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you care a lot about Ezra with asking questions. Like,
Yeah.
you've talked about that before.
Yeah. I feel like questions are pretty important, and I tried to incorporate that into what I do earlier on. But I think there also can be a bad point where it turns into like interrogating vibes, and it's too many, and it's like
Yeah.
if you just actually say something off the cuff and you open up, then they're gonna open up also. Like
Yes.
I could either say, "Oh, like, how's your relationship with God been?" Or I could just, or another option, I could be like, "Oh, like, I've been feeling really close to God recently, you know," and maybe you'd be like, "Same," and then like you just kind of start bouncing off each other on that.
And I do also agree that if you have the ability, those games where it's like you have to talk about a subject and you can't say am or the or like any fill-in words, and you have to talk about it for 30 seconds. And then you have to continue on the conversation. Like that's a skill. Like, that's a skill to be able to
Yeah.
continue a conversation, to talk about something, and to put details in and describing words, and to analyze it and talk it out and stuff like that, and really process it. Like that's a skill within itself. And so I think if someone asks you a question and you can articulate your words correctly and nicely, and put them in a nice conversation and talk about it for more than just a one-word answer, that's also an attribute of being a good conversationalist.
Yeah, totally. Being able to put them, because then it's easy for them to ask questions further, or them to build off it if you're making concise
let's be
ideas.
if you're talking to a youth and you like ask them like, oh, like how was your basketball game, and they're like, oh, good, they're not a good conversationalist.
They're not giving you anything.
Yeah.
And then they could also say, "Yeah, it was good. I won," and like that's good. I mean, I say that sometimes, but then what if you could build on it? Oh, it was good, but flip, like we had like the worst game, like we used and then it's easy to talk about that. Why was it the worst game?
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask something really quick. What do you think? You're like approaching someone, we'll say church foyer. I feel like that's just the go-to. You're approaching someone in the church foyer. How much, like, we've talked about this before, but in terms of being your authentic self, being completely authentic, you could just, go to them and just greet them exactly how you feel. Or do you think it's good to just kind of bring in more energy than you normally would? And brother, and like kind of be a little bit more jokey and happy than you normally would. What do you think the right thing to do? The right thing to do is.
I feel like you should live out of your values, and if you value being a bit energetic, and doing that, I think you should do that. Because if I lived out out of my feelings all the time, like sometimes I don't feel like actually saying hi to anyone sometimes, and not talking to anyone.
Yeah.
Like I have to make a choice sometimes that I'm going to say, "Hey Levi, how are you going? How was your day?" Inside, I might not feel like saying that. I might have had a really just personally just feeling really low. But I still need to make that choice to do that because I value that, even if I don't feel that way, So it's a hard one. Like, some people might think I'm being authentic. Like I just feel so down today and I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm being authentic, but like, is that really authentic? Like it's a good question. I think another podcast we're going to do that. We're going to talk about like should we be living out of our feelings and kind of dive into that a bit more. But I reckon it's kind of on that similar vibe.
Yeah, very similar vibe.
Yeah. I think I 100% agree with Tremaine, and think it's all that process of like coming in, even out of love, you know what I mean? Like you engage with the person, and I remember making conscious decision for myself. I think it's very important how you greet people and how you leave people. And so one very conscious decision I make is, and I don't get it right every time, but like when I meet someone or when I greet someone, I stand up, shake their hand, and like give them a hug. You know what I mean? And it just like
You're good with that.
you know,
You're
it just
good
it's
with
like
it.
intentional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you like you acknowledge them, you represent, like you engage with them, and they go, oh yeah, like I'll remember that. You know what I mean? And I think that's very important, even if you might not feel like it. But it's like no, you're making an effort because you value the person and love.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone that knows Levi, like, people know that you're a consistent guy. Like, it was his 21st this week or last week.
Yeah.
And that's like, we in our family went around in a circle and we just said things about Levi, and it got brought up so many times how consistent, you know, how present you are and how, you know, happy you are to see people. And I know that, you know, being a good, you know, brother, like, you aren't always inside super happy as well. So it's so cool to actually see you make that effort and just, you know, say that out loud, bro. You know?
Thanks, T-Man.
That's pretty on. I have noticed that actually, like, you do stand up to greet people, and sometimes I actually haven't even thought about it before. Like, I'd often if someone comes, I'll just dap them up sitting down, but it does show love if you stand up and like give them a bit of an embrace. It is something I do like that. It's a good thought.
It's a good way to just acknowledge the person and, like you said, you know, just make an effort. And I do think if you started off well, it makes a difference.
Yeah, and it's okay to make an effort as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's actually fine. Like,
And so we can do another podcast about it. But when is
Yeah.
it too much? When are you
Yeah.
acting
well,
like
you can get borderline like people pleasing, and that can just go down a bad track as well.
someone walks in and you're like, brother, brother, and it's just not you, you know? Yeah, you just start like, I don't even know. It's like, it's too much. Stop it. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Should we finish off? Ezra, what's one thing from this podcast that you think makes a good conversation? And then I'll go and then Joel will go.
Okay. I'm going to go right off what we just kind of said before. I think greeting someone, just like being welcoming and warm to them. So you're standing up when you see them. I think that's a good play. I think it's a good play every time.
I like it. I'm going to say asking open-ended questions is a good one. Asking questions that they can talk about and finding something that they're passionate about and asking questions about the person.
Okay, I'm gonna say fully committing to the conversation. You know, closing your shoulders, closing your feet, looking them in the eye.
I like it.
And closing shoulders and closing feet. If someone didn't listen to the podcast, like they wouldn't know what that means. Like, kind of random, but you know, we're giving knowledge here. But we're also having a discussion. We don't know all the answers. So yeah.
Sweet. Should we sign them off?
Sounds good.
Ready, boys?
Yeah.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
listening
listening
to
to the
another
Vanilla
episode.
Podcast. Oh no. Okay, we're gonna do that one more
what was the
time.
thing?
Okay. Wait, hold up.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Thank
Thanks
you
for listening
to
to
another episode of the Vanilla Podcast.
That was the messiest thing.